paint touches and had to be able to get Reagan Beers the ball. So listen, I know that South Carolina is a great team, a great shooting team as well, but we got to have to go over loose balls to be able to get some more touches of our own.
Yeah, and look, when you're a team like Oklahoma who can get hot from the three-point line, who can score them quickly, you're never out of a ball game, but you've got to string together multiple stops at a time, and it has to start in this first 5 minutes.
Raven Johnson with the basketball now. Joyce Edwards has not scored in this game until that moment. Can Oklahoma get this offense going? Peyton Verhulst, that's a good start.
Yes, but you got to get stops. You cannot trade scores.
Joyce Edwards this time on the near side. And a foul called on Aaliyah Chavez. Interesting stat we've pulled up. South Carolina is 31-1 this season when leading at the half, but the only loss when they've led at the half was to this Oklahoma team.
Well, look, and again, when you're playing a team like Oklahoma and the way that they can score so quickly, you aren't really out of a ball game. But that right there, that play, that margin of error that Jenny Baranczyk was talking about, that's 3 times Oklahoma has fouled a jump shooter. 3 times that they fouled a jump shooter. That's attention to detail, that's discipline, that's the margin for error, the mentality that you have to have. You can't afford to make those kinds of mistakes in a game like this.
And South Carolina is making them pay because they're 8 for 8 from the free throw line. Zaya Van, so it's back-to-back threes for Oklahoma, but they've not gotten stops on the other end.
And you get a little bit of juice, you get a little bit of life, you settle in on the offensive end. Now you gotta be talking about it together on the defensive end of the floor.
Reagan Beers with the rebound, Chavez hitting the gas, up ahead to Verhulst. Skip pass to Zaya Van. And a tough shot in the paint. Tessa Johnson, man, talk about a tough shot. Not just a three-point shooter.
No, she can take it to the rack as well.
Verhulst at the free throw line, leaves it short. Latson corrals it. Now South Carolina will push in transition. And an offensive foul as Chavez takes the charge.
Well, Leah Chavez does such a great job of this, and you've seen it throughout the course of the season. She plays it perfectly, gets herself established. That was one of the moments that I felt like Taniyah Latson's decision-making. You had a 3-on-1. Tessa Johnson was at the three-point line. Raven Johnson running right beside you. At that moment, she could have given it up and maybe gotten it back.
Zaya Van, too much. It'll stay on this side with Oklahoma.
Those block charges are hard. I feel like that could have been an opportunity for us to talk to Violet over here.
I know. Violet Palmer, our rules analyst.
Steph, you did a nice job with the, she established legal guarding position.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm coachable. I'm coachable.
I love it.
Brooklyn Stewart's going to check into the game, so it'll be Stewart and Beers into the ball game for Oklahoma. South Carolina's got Medina Okot down there in the paint. Beers on her. Okot picked up 2 fouls in the first half. Latson eyes up, back to Okot. Tessa Johnson saved that from being a turnover and turned it into 2.
Yeah, that's a heck of a play by Tessa Johnson and a missed opportunity for Aaliyah Chavez in Oklahoma.
Beers in trouble, picked up her dribble. Peyton Verhulst not giving up on the play.
The energy is better for Oklahoma. already in this third quarter. But again, you got to string together some stops. And I love how disciplined South Carolina's being in the quarter court, making sure they're getting the shot and the action that they want. Tessa Johnson's coming off of this.
Right to the elbow she goes. Back-to-back buckets for Tessa.
Matson and Raven Johnson carry you in the first half. Now you're getting Tessa Johnson going in the second.
Oh my goodness.
Oh.
Over her head, Aaliyah Chavez. Remember, first meeting, not a great first half for Aaliyah Chavez. And in the second half and overtime, she just turned it up a gear.
She sure did. She took over overtime. She can heat up quickly. She can score in bunches.
And on this side, South Carolina's scored on 5 of their 7 possessions here in the third quarter. Won't get a score on that.
Right here.
Verhulst. Deep three is short.
See how intentional South Carolina's being, though, about slowing it down, working their execution. This is an area that Dawn Staley wants her team to continue to improve, and how about that?
Tessa Johnson just shot that from the scorer's table. And South Carolina gets it back. You know, we talked to Tessa yesterday about what goes through her head when she lets a shot go up. She says her dad taught her to shoot, so she hears his voice with little pointers and little cues in her head. Dawn Staley?
When you think about the runs that Dawn Staley's teams made back in those days with an elite point guard.
Well, after this game concludes, we'll get you to that game. We step aside now. South Carolina up under 5 minutes to go. Had surgery back in October. You know, you did wonder how that was going to impact South Carolina. You think it put a little bit more on Joyce Edwards?
It absolutely did, and Dawn Staley talked about that. It gave Joyce Edwards the ability to grow through some things she might not have been able to with Chloe Kitts on the floor.
Tessa gives it back to Joyce, shooting over 2 defenders. Joyce Edwards now with 6, all of those points coming here in the third quarter, and Aaliyah Chavez, a tough shot falling to the ground. Chavez feeding Beers.
And you could hear Jenny Baranczyk saying, get it in, get it in, get it in. Good things happen when you can get Reagan Beers a touch. You know, if you're Oklahoma, can you string a couple of these stops together?
Allie Tornabees at the free throw line. There's a back-to-back stop for Oklahoma.
And you got to get a score. You got to convert them.
Chavez lets it fly. Tessa Johnson back to Joyce Edwards. Swatted away by Brooklyn Stewart. Tessa got it back, turnaround.
Possessions, 50-50s.
I think Keziah Lofton was ready to get on the other end.
Good pass ahead, Aaliyah.
Tessa's got the ball. She's got 11 points in the third quarter.
And the patience of South Carolina to really get what they want, to understand that these are the areas that they've got to continue to grow, working the clock.
I think Tornabee's got a hand on it.
selective with their opportunities to push in transition. When you have an advantage, you take it. If not, you're disciplined, you come back out, and you execute offense.
Courtney, you go back to that January 22nd meeting when South Carolina lost against Oklahoma, and we asked the players, like, what was Dawn Staley like in the locker room? And they said, she wasn't mad. She was more like disappointed, which sometimes when you hear that from your parents is almost a worse thing. They said back at practice, though, the next couple of days, it did get a lot worse. But when I talked to Coach Staley about it before the game today, she said, sometimes those losses help you because when you win several in a row, it can mask the problems, some of the holes that your team has, and those get exposed in a loss. They went on to win 12 straight after that. She said, I kind of thought our team needed that to see what we were and what we can be.
Chris, I was in those practices after the Oklahoma loss. Can confirm that Dawn was pretty fired up, and then they just destroyed Vanderbilt after that. Contact underneath, and Reagan Beers hit the deck.
When you can win and you're playing through slippage, oftentimes as a coach, it's hard to continue to hold them accountable to the standard because they don't see the impact of it, right? As a coach, you see the impact of it and what you're really preparing for. But in a loss, it gets their attention. Joyce Edwards talked to us about we weren't playing connected, we weren't playing together. Raven Johnson talked about playing to the standard and not playing to the score, not playing to how many games you've won in a row. All that is so important, and having Raven Johnson, the senior leader who's been here, who's won championships, on the floor in these moments throughout the course of a ball game to relay that message in real time has been critical, I think, for South Carolina and their growth.
Yeah, her individual growth has just permeated this whole team. Dawn Staley had a conversation with Raven Johnson in the offseason and asked her, what are your goals? And then she told her, she said, Raven, how are you going to do these things if you don't work at it? And she said, Coach, I am working at it. She said, not enough. And Raven took that to heart and went to work even harder. Look at the results.
And you give Raven Johnson a lot of credit for being able to hear that and to take that message, to grow through that. Nobody wants to hear that what you're doing is not enough and how you're doing it isn't enough. But you look at these numbers, and all she's done in this program is win. And her assist numbers, third in career rankings as well. But to take it and to apply it and then see the results from it.
Reagan Beers shut that down. Sahara Williams over to Verhulst. They'll swing it to the corner to Van. Chavez keeping an eye up. Sahara Williams at the free throw line, in and out. A minute to go here in the third quarter.
Miscommunication.
And Tornaby's missed it.
That's good transition defense from South Carolina. And again, a missed opportunity for Oklahoma. You get a stop, you get an opportunity to go get a quick score, maybe a 2-for-1. And now you're getting into a lower clock situation.
Tornaby's with a block. Look, South Carolina's won for their last 10, but Oklahoma hasn't been able to take advantage.
Not able to convert on the other end. This is a great individual effort by Tornaby's, using that length and the outstretched arm.
Chavez in the corner. $14 points now for Chavez. South Carolina can take the final shot of the quarter. Chavez with a heave. But 10 minutes to go, and South Carolina handily in front, 68-49. Tanaya Latson out to McKeer. And they got McKeer is fouled, three-point opportunity on the way.
That's the fourth time a jump shooter has been fouled by Oklahoma. This is a great drive by McKeer. You gotta live with that shot. You gotta live with them taking mid-range contested pull-ups. You can't afford those opportunities where you give them free throws and ones. And 2 of those have been three-point field goal attempts.
And South Carolina 9 for 9 from the charity stripe tonight. McKeer got it back other way. Up to head to Maddie McDaniel. The last touch by Oklahoma. Well, for the 6th straight year, every NCAA Women's Championship game is on the networks of ESPN. For more information, go to ncaa.com. It's hard to believe the Final Four is almost here.
It's almost here. It's gone so fast.
South Carolina, a program that has made 5 straight Final Fours. They're the only team in the last 5 tournaments that can say that. Latson, just in rhythm.
Prior to that bucket, Tanai Latson had scored or assisted on 72% of South Carolina's offense. She's been terrific here this afternoon. But if you're Oklahoma, you got to find a way to turn up the defensive pressure. You cannot afford to let South Carolina use an entire shot clock. You got to put some pressure on them. You got to speed them up. You got to get 3 or 4 stops in a row, come down and convert.
Chavez now with 17 points. She's hit 3 threes. But to your point, South Carolina offensively shooting 50% from the field. They're almost shooting 70% from 3.
Well, they're shooting the ball really well, and they're being disciplined on the offensive end. And if you're Oklahoma, you got to find a way to speed them up a little bit. They cannot allow them to eat the clock every time down the floor and still give up high percentage looks.
What would you do to speed them up?
It's got to be pressure on the basketball. It's got to be not allowing easy passes around the perimeter. Maybe bring a little bit of pressure.
Chavez looking for a scoop. Instead, she'll get 2 free throws. Fouled by Agat McKeer. That's the first on her. Oklahoma hasn't been to the Elite Eight since 2010. For South Carolina, they're looking for their 6th straight trip to the Elite Eight. South Carolina made it to that national final last year, lost to UConn, and I think that fueled Raven Johnson and this team. Raven specifically has talked about that her sole focus is just on winning another national championship. Now, she's been a part of 2, but the first one she was injured and was out for most of that season.
Well, Raven Johnson took it personal in the offseason. She was committed to continuing to get better, working on her game, spent some time up in Minneapolis with Anthony Edwards and his trainer, working out 3 times a day in the weight room, on the court, just really committed to growing her game, and it's shown.
Okai with a block. Raven Beers got it back. Chavez trying to shake McDaniel. 6 seconds. Inside to Beers. I thought Maddie McDaniel was about to get a block on Reagan Beers.
That's one of the few times we've seen the ball get side to side, multiple passes, force rotations, and getting a touch for Reagan Beers. Passes delivered on time. Maddie McDaniel, you're right, she almost got that one.
Instead, that's her 2nd foul, and Beers at the free throw line. It took Oklahoma a while to start getting Reagan Beers the basketball, and that allowed South Carolina just jumped out to a quick lead.
Well, it's twofold. I mean, South Carolina's defense has been really good, as they have been all season long, but also being intentional if you're Oklahoma, if you don't have something early in transition about getting her a touch.
McKeer. It's going to be a blocking foul on Chavez. And then Verhulst, McKeer, and Chavez got all tangled up. Second on Leah Chavez. And Chavez, a freshman who has already shown she's got a pretty high ceiling. She's come in with and carried a big load for this Oklahoma team. She's their leading scorer. She leads them in assists. She leads them at the free throw line.
I mean, she's a player who can get her shot whenever she wants it. She's a high volume scorer. She can heat up in a hurry, learning how to play in a system, learning how to play with a dominant post player and how to run a team. I mean, as a point guard, coming in as a young player, it's a lot. It's a lot of responsibility. And, you know, she's talked about her growth and how important these upperclassmen, specifically Sahara Williams, has been to her growth and impacting her and helping her move on to the next play, understanding time and score.
Latson up ahead on the break. And she's fouled by Sahara Williams. Second against Williams.